Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk through some of the basic setup for a combo rig for the facial expression and lip syncing. The first thing that I would like to show you is the bone setup. You can see that I've got just a very small number of morph targets here, blend shapes. I've got my base mesh, and I've got an eye rig here that controls the position of the eye. This eye rig is rigged into the bone rig so that you can see, whoa, rotate only, you can see that it follows along with the head movement as well as independently being able to control the head, or the eye movement. Alright, so that's it. I'm going to go ahead and hide my blend shapes. Take a look at the bone configuration. This facial, the head rig, can be added to the Human IK rig in Maya. With the Human IK rig, oftentimes you've got the top node, the end joint there that is placed right between the ears, the axis point for the skull. You can go ahead and build on to that. The way that I typically build on with the fewest number of bones is to add to that joint, come straight up and straight out for the eye mesh. And I'll parent the eye mesh to the individual bones there. Go ahead and see that in this view. Put X-ray on so you can see that. So the joint in the center of the eye, these are half spheres for the eyes, but if you have full spheres, it'll go in the center of the eye as well. These joints, the orientation is pointing straight out along the same tangent. That's why I go ahead and build in this additional bone so it's looking straight in that direction. Regardless, your end joint it has nothing to look at for orientation, so you need to fix that normally by hand. You can do that under the component mode. Go ahead and click on that little tiny arrow next to it. It'll reveal a series of icons. Go to the question mark, put local rotation on, and you can see that these were not aligned. But the x-axis should look straight down that bone to the next joint, and that tangent is what you want to follow through on. Now, the reason it wasn't done for this demonstration is because there is a problem in Maya 2018 where you are unable to orient the joints in component mode. I think they found a workaround here recently, but that's why this particular orientation does not show correct. You're definitely going to want to do that, though, so that it behaves properly when you're animating that. Alright, back to object mode. Clicking on the icon there next to component mode, you can see in the side view that I've also positioned a joint coming forward to the rotation point for the jaw. Now, I'm not going to create the jaw bones to the side. I've seen that done a little bit. I'm just in favor of creating as few joints as possible. So I come straight out to that axis point, then down to the mandible and out. You can go ahead and come straight out if you choose, but I like to put a joint down so that I can see and feel the full shape of the jaw as I'm weight painting and as I am rotating this jaw. Make sure that that is properly deforming. So it's this joint that I will rotate to make sure that my lip positions or my mouth positions are correct for lip syncing. Blend shapes will help me to create the deformation of the muscle in the face to make that look more accurate, not just like a puppet face. It'll get the forms of the muscles in the lips and the eye expressions around the eyes, etc. You can't get that as easily without introducing a lot of joints. It's very much more challenging for an animator to manage, but not impossible. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the eye rig. It's just a standard eye rig. Let's go ahead and go to the perspective view. I've got independent spheres, custom handles for each eye to look straight into. You can see that we go to front view, those are aligned and actually snapped to that joint so that they are perfectly aligned and then offset. Then I have those controlled by this outer sphere, so I just have one object controlling the position of all that I have to key on. You can hopefully see, turn on the there we go. Turn on that so you can see the eye movement a little bit better with your wireframe showing. Okay. Now, the reason that we create two spheres for the look at constraint or the aim constraint is so that the eyes are not looking at the pivot point of one object. If they did that, they would look cross-eyed. Doesn't matter how far offset you send your handle, your custom handle, it's still going to have a slight appearance of being cross-eyed. So give yourself, or give your character good vision, and make sure that you are making sure that the eyes are looking straight ahead and moving in parallel with one another. Alright, so that's the basic bone configuration. There is the eye that is a look at constraint. The eye mesh is parented to the bone that's driving it, which is that tiny little end bone, and the bone is constrained, aim constrained to this particular handle, and then this handle, overall handle, drives the two smaller handles. Let's see. Let's see if we can cover that. Okay. So your nerve circles are right down in here. Alright, so now let's take a quick look at the blend shapes. Blend shapes are the sculpted additional heads. When you create your blend shapes, you can do that in any application you choose. I prefer ZBrush. I'm going to make sure that the jawbone is respected and the position of the axis point or the rotation of the jaw. That pivot point should be right at the hinge, and of course the mouth is also, the deforming quality of the mouth is respected. The mouth has one large donut shaped muscle around that, and so if you think in terms of that and how much of a challenge it is to go ahead and weight that on one existing axis bone and another jawbone, it's a bit of a challenge. But if you get the blend shapes sculpted, then the end result is influenced by the blend shapes and not so much by the weighting of the skin to the bones. Still important to get good skin weighting on that jaw And so knowing that the blend shapes or the morph targets are going to deform that shape, it's not going to fix that shape. When you do weight this, know that that skull, including the eye sockets, the bridge of the nose, the cartilage of the nose, the cheekbones, that's all one large bone that doesn't move. So several bones, but they move together and almost rigid weighted to that axis point. So when you go to rotate that, it's going to feel like a solid object. Then when you go to move your jaw, it's just the weights of the jaw that are going to move. So if we go to the rigging category of tools in Maya and go to the skin weighting, you can see that a little bit better, the result of that. Let's go ahead. Here we go. Red, of course, if you look at the color ramp, is close to 100% on that jawbone that is currently selected. And working out from there, you got less and less percentage of influence until the blue, which is the least amount of influence. Black is no influence at all in the percentage of weight to that joint that I have selected. But this is, I'm showing you this because this jawbone should in fact rotate almost 100% influenced by that joint. And that's how we get it to look as real as possible. There's still some weight painting issues around the mouth that can be further fixed and will indeed improve the quality of the application of the blend shapes as well. So as we work forward and iterate on this model, he will improve in his performance and the way that he looks. Alright, that said, let's take a little bit closer look at the setup of the blend shapes. Now, I've seen a lot of blend shapes surrounding a base mesh, and I've seen even fewer than this. It really has to do with the activity of the character, what that character is going to be used for. Blend shapes basically are setting up vertex animation. The vertices on your mesh are going to translate in space. And so that's really what blend shapes do, is they introduce the percentage of weight and influence on the position of the vertices of your base mesh. Let's go ahead and get out of this tool. And so when you create your base mesh, or excuse me, yes, the base mesh, when you're preparing your base mesh for blend shapes, you're going to oftentimes detach it from the body up under the clothing, so the clothing rides over this seam, and you won't have light leaks in your character inside the game engine. But you also need to make sure that the facial construction is complete. You're not going to be changing the vertex order at all, which means adding polygons or taking away polygons, changing that mesh. It must be complete in order to go forward with your blend shapes. The reason for that is if you change the vertex order of your base mesh, again, this is vertex animation, it changes every single point of reference on the mesh for these other vertices. So it will destroy your work, and there's no saving it, really. They've tried to create a few pipelines that would help to save it, but no, they don't work very well. Alright, so that's my best offering there. Tip: complete your base mesh before you go forward, putting all the time and trouble into sculpting these facial expressions and lip sync positions. Alright, so here you can see, I'm going to go ahead and take it off template. You can use it on reference, is that I have expressions and I have lip positions. And expressions, I typically change the vertices above the nose, okay, about midway above the nose. For lip sync, I typically change the positioning of the vertices below the nose, and I'm talking about the nostrils, the upper part of the lip. All of that area is going to be influenced by the positioning of the mouth. So make sure that you're not cutting off your nose and making that the entire nose part of your expression, because you will need to influence that area a little bit by your lip sync as well to get more realistic motion. I also have a blink in here. Sometimes you'll get two of these, one wink on both sides, so you can use them independently or together for a blink. I don't often wink, and I can't recall a time when I've only needed to wink a character, so I just do a blink. And also, you know, you've got angry, you've got concerned or scared. Depending on the style of animation, if you need to deform this face pretty radically, that's exactly what you get to do with blend shapes and morph targets. You can sculpt those into position, create some really fun motion. Don't go too radical unless you test your work and make sure that that's exactly what you want, because you can get really into it by making some really fun work, and then it's not usable because it's too dramatic, it's too radical for the style of your game. A little overboard. It's easy to do that when you're getting into playing with bringing your characters to life or stylized motion. For realistic motion, you're going to stay as realistic with the deformation of your mesh as possible. So examine your reference carefully when you're sculpting. Make sure you're not going too radical with the position of those muscles so that he ends up looking more realistic and not cartoony, not overblown. All right, so you can see that I've got expression, blink, expression. I've got two expressions of a blink. And down here I've got two lip positions. I've got a wide open mouth and an extreme pose for the ooh sound. I can also create an E, which is drawing back the corners of the mouth, but oftentimes if I just close my mouth just a little bit, I'll get the shape that's useful for an E, and I won't have to introduce another blend shape. Alright, anytime you introduce more blend shapes, you're introducing more data to carry into the game engine. And memory, especially if you're animating for console, needs to be optimized. You need to cut down what it is you're doing in order to preserve memory. Alright, so that said, when you set this up, you're going to go ahead and select each one of these heads. Doesn't matter what order you select these in, unless you want the order of the sliders in a certain order. Naming convention is absolutely critical. I've left this name in to respect the artist of this particular head mesh, Nick, who has bundled his work with ZBrush for reverse engineering and use so that we can get to know the tools. This is his male average, his human male average. And so, and I've added additional information to my naming convention here so that I can know which one I've got. So I'm going to go ahead and select each one of my heads. There's no order, except the last one that you select needs to be your base mesh. Alright, so then I can come up to my Windows Animation Editors, Shape Editor, and click Create Blend Shape. And as you can see, I've already gone ahead and put my sliders in for each one of my heads here, and in fact the red is an indicator that they've been keyframed. So let's go ahead and show you the keyframe. The head is excuse me, a demo. This particular head is a demo for the head turn, and I will go ahead and get rid of my blend shapes now that you can see those. The only thing that you need to export, and we'll get to that afterward, is the one mesh with the animation keys on it. So if I select my mesh and take a look at my time slider, you can see I've got a lot of keyframes on that mesh. This has to do with the blend shapes. So if you go to your channel box, inputs, your blend shapes, they're all here for you to select. Middle mouse button, drag down, and keyframe. You can see the motion in the eyes there. Alright, so I've created an animation using the blend shapes. You can use one. You can use one at a fraction between 0 and 1, or you can blend these together so that you have expression and mouth position as well. So you can blend them all together. So it creates any number of positions for you to express your character. Alright, I'm going to take the X-ray off. I'm going to take the blend shapes, and I'm going to also show you that there are keyframes. Let's try that again. My order of selection is off. Oh, alright, I've referenced my bone, that's why it's not selecting it. Alright, so this is my neck joint right down in here. You can see that there are keyframes on that. I'm going to my head, and you can see that there are keyframes on that. And I'm going to my jaw. You can see there are keyframes on that. And my eye rig, you can see there are keyframes on that as well. Also, what you're seeing is a drag and dropped in audio file, and WAV files are fine for this. You can find those online. 11 Second Club, which is a site specifically for animators, encouraging animators and providing for animators, has a lot of freeware there that you can practice with. And so that's where this soundbite came from. You can go ahead and I'll play this. What I have here is the head turn. Alright, so very, very important that okay, went ahead and put an extra key on that, but I'll touch it later. Alright, so what I have here is the I need to find that. Okay. Is the head turn. And the head turn is going to be the baseline for learning how to create animation for the head. It's as simple as it gets. It includes all of the major components of animation, and excuse me, it will give you practice using your blend shapes, your lip, jawbone, your eye rig, and of course your head bones and your neck bones. Building an expression by the use of the head and neck bones is also really important when you're lip syncing. It's not all about the position of the mouth or the expression in the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and play this out, curiously enough. He should not start in the open position, so that's curious. Alright, I'll fix that in a little bit. However, what I want you to see is the formula, the basic formula for the animation. I want you to see the anticipation, which is a blink of the eye and the beginning of the eye movement, which leads the head, which leads the neck, which leads the body. It's a hierarchy of motion, always beginning with a blink. The eye is beginning to move, the head and the neck and the body. So I have this character moving down, and then he moves back up in this direction. He's talking, and so he's got anticipation in the moves. He's got the slow in. He's got an arc of motion there. He's got the push out of the extreme pose and then back into the extreme pose each time he moves his head. And I want to go ahead and play this repetitively from different angles so that you can see all of that. And let's go. Takes a couple of Okay, so you can see the eye movement a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and try to play it with that showing. It takes a couple cycles to run it on. Alright, so let's talk through this and scrub it together. You can see the eye movement is taking the head in that direction as the head rotates from the performer right to the performer left. Oh, that's where it is. Okay, I was just simply puzzled by the rotation here. Okay. Alright, so starting with the static pose in the front, that was my intention. I'm going to scrub. You get an eye blink, and I'm going to select these because I think it might be easier for you to see them in the recording. You're getting a blink, and your eyes are going the direction that your head is following. See, your eyes get there first, opening, blinking as a settle in feature. You got facial blend shapes added to keep that deformation in the face going ever so slightly so that he looks alive as he's talking. Okay. The movement in the head and neck. What's the point? And he's anticipating movement. I've dramatized this just a little bit so you can see it a little easier. He's blinking and he's anticipating the move by coming back this direction just a little bit. Now he's going to swing in the opposite direction, the arc of motion. Notice the eyes are leading that action. Much more natural that way. The head is following. Look alive animations with the blend shapes. Getting some good movement in the face. And you've got blend shapes carrying, there's an example of blend shapes carrying the lip syncing of that as well. Movement adding to it. Blinks and facial expression, making sure that face stays alive. I got a radical rotation in the jaw there, which is to show that you can go too far. It doesn't look natural, back it off a little bit. On and on. Now notice when he's finished talking, his eyes rest. And so really what you're doing is you're allowing the eyes to come down, eyelids to come down, more in a rest after he's talking. Let's play that one more time. Now you can also hopefully detect in the playback that you've got a couple of different speeds on blink. You've got a nice natural slower blink, and then you've got a really quick blink in here. And so you can vary depending on what he's saying, because we do as we speak. I look down and around, and then a quick blink up. So again, the study of life integrated into your animations. You're always looking for the character's attitude. What would your character in his position do? If he's a brawny military man, his facial expressions are going to be very different than, for example, a meek, maybe a meek little character who is more timid, perhaps. Very different in the attitude of the expressions, as well as the position of the head and the neck. Even the shoulders will play into that eventually. All right. Let's see. I think that's all I have to share about this particular head. Other than know that your body, normally, this is just a demo for you guys to reverse engineer and take a look at, but the body of the character, of course, and the clothing and all, including the rig, the rest of the rig is normally going to be attached. This is just for this particular demo in class, so that you can get to know what the neck and facial rig is doing without everything else attached and having to deal with that. Now, please take what you have learned from this particular rig and apply it to your own character for best result for your portfolio. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing the work that you're producing and giving you support to perfect your own animations. If you need any help at all, please contact me directly, and we will make a time to get together and work together on your skills. Thank you.